everybody. This is Gary Ryan Blair. It's the 9th of January, 2019. So this is our first after-action review call of the year. I want to welcome all the new members, which are coming in at a pretty fast pace right now. As a matter of fact, I've been up for a good better part of 3 days at this point in time, with interviews, a lot of webinars and stuff like that. But this is important business and an important part of the challenge. Okay, so let me do this. Let me start up with a mission and just reinforce that, which is to inspire, to promote, and to celebrate excellence. This obviously is what drives everything that I do, and I always want to provide you with messages that really hit those 3 points, that inspire you to raise your game, raise your standards, to always constantly promote the principles of excellence, of greatness, of going the extra mile, of doing everything you can to unleash your God-given potential, and obviously to celebrate it. And that'll be part of the conversation as well, so we'll touch on each one of those. From there, for those of you who are new, and the alumni are well aware of it, but you're always going to want to kind of go through from time to time the after-action review process, which is located up in the top toolbar. That'll give you a chance, if you will, to kind of reflect on the past week's performance. Personally, I do this every single week. I've done it for the last almost, over a decade at this point in time, but essentially this is the one tool that I feel at my disposal as well as at yours that gives you an opportunity to predict the future in advance, and then at the end of a week, sit back and ask yourself, how well did your prediction do? Did you take the necessary actions in order to make this a reality? If not, where did you fall short? What corrective actions do you need to take? What habits or beliefs or anything you need to discard, if you will, and in order to stay on track, because the ultimate end game here is to achieve the goals that you set, not necessarily just to come close or to play some game of frustration. It is absolutely to score it and to get across the finish line. All right, with that being said, this is the beginning of the year, so what I want to do is kind of walk you through a start fast game plan, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So the objective, make it real simple, is provide you with a set of proven performance principles, kind of a game plan, if you will, that you can use to immediately fast-track your results in any single goal that you're working on. So what we're going to discuss will work across the board for any goal, any size, no matter where you're located. And while these principles and what we're going to talk about are simple, they're straightforward. And by the way, let me just, before I finish that off, here's my objective. Whenever I create content and deliver it, I always have my own personal stress test, and I'm going to be talking about criteria and how you make decisions as to what works and what doesn't. But for me, it's got to be simple to understand, simple to apply and get results from, simple for you to teach and share with others. Most importantly, it has to be very hard to forget. So one of the reasons why I have a tendency of using kind of rhymes, that I have a tendency of using strategies that are very short, tight words, but stuff that's easy, or should we say unforgettable to remember, because I want to plant a seed of certainty, of an execution strategy that I know works, and get you to find ways to apply it as often as possible. So while the principles that we're going to talk about are simple, they're also extremely powerful when they're skillfully applied, but I did not necessarily say easy. So let's kind of walk our way through this entire thing. So I'm going to start off with the idea in terms of what can you do to start? What's this whole thing all about? Well, let me speak to starting as it relates towards I'll do it now, but also probably want to get to point number 7 once again. But you want to start off fast. That is so extremely important in terms of these first 7 days or even the first 30 days of the year. But as it relates to the challenge, the single best piece of advice I could give to you outside of taking the AARs very seriously when you do your review is to start the first 7 days just like a crack of a whip, for the simple reason that if you could prove to yourself that you can move mountains in a very short period of time and make some demonstrable progress on a goal that you're working on that's important to you, you are going to be so in love with what you're doing, with the results that you're getting, that you're going to dig deeper, you're going to push harder, you're going to commit stronger, you're going to do everything that's necessary in order to make sure that this big challenging goal winds up getting achieved. So these first couple of days are absolutely critical. Now, the way I look at it, and this is what I do when I start off in any single year, but also it's the way that I start off every day, is I start with a script, and I'm going to recommend it to each one of you. Now, let's just talk about the idea in terms of a script, because it's really kind of interesting to me, because I always hear people say, I don't like to write my goals down and put my plan down and put my deadlines in place and all of this type of stuff. It seems so stiff and so inflexible and all of this type of stuff. Well, let me walk you through in terms of the mindset of a champion, because I think we have a tendency of hearing these things, and they get repeated down throughout history, but they're usually repeated down by people who have not been that successful, who are, quite frankly, are not living up to their potential, and they're just repeating what they heard from somebody else, and they bought into this nonsense. And I mean nonsense. I want to emphasize that. So right now we have, if you start to go in, you start to look at professional football, you start to look at whether you go to Broadway or whatever the case might be. We'll use Broadway as an opportunity right now. We'll talk about that. But if you go and watch a play, say you go to New York City or San Francisco, wherever the heck you're going to be in the country or the world, you're going to see a well-scripted, well-rehearsed, everything, right down to the clothing, to the makeup, to, an eyebrow being lifted or whatever the case might be. But there is nothing left to chance. A professional performance knows exactly how they're going to open, exactly how they're going to transition, exactly where the highlight points are, exactly when to transition off the stage, and exactly when they're going to close. It is timed right down to the second. That's just the way that it goes. And the same thing is true when you have a boxer or even, let's say, a football. We're going to watch the playoffs that are coming that are already in play right now for the NFL. Every single coach has done their homework. They have prepared. They've looked at their competition. They know their strengths and weaknesses. They want to find ways with which to exploit those. And they're going to come into the game with a whole series of game plan well scripted out in terms of the first 15 or 20 plays. They want to see how their competition, if you will, is going to respond to those things. They'll take that feedback and adjust accordingly. But I promise you, every professional, and I emphasize professional, starts with a script. What that means is you need to know exactly what your goals are. And I mean with exact, complete specificity. No misunderstanding, no ambiguity, none of this trying to hit the broadside of a barn. What is the exact number, the exact target, the exact outcome that you are looking for on a day-to-day basis? If you can, on an hour-by-hour basis. You want to dial that in. And think about the deadlines that's associated with it. You do that, you're in much more control of your day, and I think that's one of the things that's missing for most people. So the takeaway is develop a fully scripted day-by-day, week-by-week action plan for the first 30 days. I really want you to hone in on what are the things that you want to do and sit back and say to yourself, if you're going to make this the best year of your life, I promise you, that requires momentum. That requires massive action. That requires a script. There's no way around it. It's just the way that one's going to work. So that one's money in the bank. Now, what does planning do for you? And this is what I always say is that, before you take action, before you do anything, something has to happen. And before you execute, planning has to take place. But planning itself, by thinking it through and creating your script, is going to promote focus because you're already going to clearly identify exactly what you want. Planning itself, it stimulates ideas and insights, innovations, whatever it is you need to adjust. Part of your game plan is thinking better, improving your performance, but it's outthinking your competition, or should we say outthinking any obstacles and challenges. And I think that's a very important point that often gets overlooked. One of the things you want to sit back as you go through the planning process when you develop your script are what are all the potential things that could get in your way. What are the landmines? What are the self-limiting beliefs? What are the previous conditioned habits or anything that are under your control that you could take control of and find ways to kind of act and respond differently? Planning is going to coordinate all your efforts and your activities, as I mentioned. It's going to provide you with performance standards, and this is where the AAR comes in. So it gives you an opportunity to determine in advance what you're looking for and then to gauge yourself 7 days from now as to how well you're performing. And think about it. This may seem really tight, and I want it to be because this needs to be in order for you to make the type of progress that I promised when you signed up, you're going to really require a different level of thinking and executing. It's just the way that it's going to go. But you've got to tighten things up and be hyper-disciplined and hyper-vigilant when it comes to it from a standpoint of execution. But planning itself is going to provide you with performance standards. So you want to go through and really understand exactly what you need to do in order to get across the finish line. Planning is going to reveal obstacles and roadblocks. It's going to save you 10-to-1 in execution, which is always beautiful. Now, again, I want to go back through and just kind of explain something. When I talk about the idea that you get 10 years with the results in 100 days, it starts with planning. Because when you think through exactly what you want and you know all your deadlines, you've identified the obstacles, the challenges, the difficulties, anything that could potentially get in your way and so forth, you are starting off from a position of confidence, from a position of strength. And your first step, you come out of the box fast because you know what needs to be done in order to strike fast, in order to get the results, and you can see 2, 3, 4 moves down the road. The problem with most people is because they don't engage in planning, they have a very weak first step. They don't have confidence in where they're going and what their plans are. They haven't thought through all of these things, and as a result of that, they're going to go off the year slow and every day of their life slow. It's just the way that it goes. But you want to get out of the gate fast, and planning allows you to do that. So you always want to be working or operating from a position of strength. And planning offers you an exit plan. So let me touch on that for just a moment. You go back to 2007, you can even look at the market right now in terms of some people getting, losing a lot of money, some making it and so forth. But, I had learned about an exit plan probably maybe 15 years ago as to truly what it meant. And it was a lot different than what I ever considered or what I learned in business school. And here's the idea. The rich and the successful, and I mean hyper successful, they think differently. They think about exit strategies before they get in the game. So as an example, I work with a number of executives that are negotiating very, very expensive pay packages. So we're talking Fortune 500 executives and so forth. And I'll tell you, part of the negotiation is what is the exit plan. What happens if things go south? What happens if they don't, whatever winds up going through? So both sides are basically going to put different types of clauses and things into the contract in order to work together. And you see that happening. As strange as this is, what a prenuptial agreement in a very strange way, that is an exit plan. You know the worst case scenario before you pull the trigger, if you will. So what the exit plan allows you to do, and I want to be real clear on this, it allows you to get out before you get in. It allows you to know what the downside is and determine in advance if it's even worth you getting involved in the first place. The problem when people make investments even in stocks is they never think about their exit plan, and they don't even put a stopgap in terms of when they're going to leave a specific thing. And as a result of it, they may take their eye off the ball and lose a lot of revenue. But you want to determine your exit before you even start. The last part on this is probably the most critical. There are some goals that the price that you have to pay are not worth it. For me, I'm not big on the social media and putting out pictures of my family and where I live and all the places I'm going and so on and so forth. Don't like it, don't believe it, not interested in it. I'm not interested in what anyone else is doing either. But here's the bigger thing. I do not want fame. I don't seek it. It's not of any interest to me. I would not want to be a Hollywood performer or somebody in the bright lights. The price of losing my anonymity would not be worth it. Not interested. So I promote a brand. There's a lot of different things that drive my behaviors. But fundamentally, you've got to really be conscious from the standpoint of what is the exit. And I know a number of celebrities and athletes, and I go to dinner with them, and I spend time with them. I know their families and so forth. And I got to tell you, it's really annoying having people walk around taking pictures of you and sticking a microphone in your face and all of that stuff and having a first-hand experience with it. Not interested at all. So I would venture out before I even got in. Next thing, from the standpoint of starting, you want to start raising your standards, and that's going to be so critically important. As far as I'm concerned, that's really kind of where this whole thing begins. But you've got to expect and demand more from yourself, but more importantly, you've got to expect and demand more from others. And I always ask people, what are you waiting for? In order for you to get to the level of performance that you want, to get to the type of income that you want, you have to raise your standards of what you will and will not do, what you'll tolerate and what you won't, what you'll allow into your life and which immediately gets 86, just kind of the way that it goes. But why would anyone wait to start setting higher standards? But that is so critically important. But the fact is, anytime you sincerely want to make a change, the first thing you've got to do is decide what are the change in standards that need to take place. And this is as simple as this is. It's a conversation that does not take place in most people's mind. So let me walk you through how to do it. You begin by writing down all the things you'll no longer accept in your life, number one, all the things you'll no longer tolerate, and all the things that you aspire to become. So let me repeat. You just pull out a piece of paper. What are the things that you will no longer tolerate in your life? So let me see if I can kind of maybe shed some light on it, because I can only speak to my truth in terms of what I've done. But I have no patience for mediocrity. I have zero tolerance for excuses. I have absolutely zero tolerance for somebody setting a commitment or making a deadline and not honoring it. And I always have for anyone that I work with. I have clauses built into it that bang, this doesn't happen, you wind up losing this much money. It's just kind of the way that it goes. And it's astonishing in terms of how people wind up making sure that they get their priorities straight and getting things done. And then usually when it's a missed deadline, there's some type of a bellyache or an excuse, so they want to blame something on me. Fundamentally, I start off knowing exactly what I'm looking for, what the deadlines are going to be. So I believe that deadlines need to be honored. You want to be on time. You need to be fully prepared. And the same thing goes when it comes to meetings. I have no tolerance for people who are unprepared, who are late. It do a whole host of things. Now, from a relationship standpoint, I just want to just be perfectly clear on this. If you tolerate cheating or someone lying to you or being physically or mentally abusive to you in some way, shape, or verbally, fundamentally you have to sit back and say to yourself, why would you continue to tolerate this stuff? There comes to a certain point in life where you've got to wake up and grow up and say to yourself, you know what, in order for me to have a better quality of life, it begins with raising my standards, but also identifying and putting, drawing lines or boundaries. What is it you will no longer tolerate from yourself or from another human being? That is so absolutely critically important, especially if you want to make 2019 your best year ever. So that's a critical piece of that entire puzzle. I just dropped my notes, so give me one just second. Okay, so we're carrying on from that idea, but changing doesn't matter what it is, whether it's an entire country, whether it's a church, whether it's a community, whatever it is, it always begins with the simple step of raising your standards. So that's point number 2. From there, again, another strong start. You want to start from a position of strength. So you always want to play to your strengths. And I've always kind of laughed when I hear people say that you got to build up on your weaknesses and offset this. Life is too darn short. So let's just kind of go through this. I believe the fundamental things that you need to identify in life are the answers to 3 questions. What do you want? Why do you want it? And how are you going to get there? Everything else is essentially going to be derivatives of those three things. As an entrepreneur, I'm just going to tell you I play to my strengths. And my strengths are knowing what I want, most importantly, and why I want it. Now, I know that creating content is so critical. So here's where 95% of my time is spent. I absolutely create content. I am the only one who writes for my blog, for the video lessons, for anything else. There is no collaboration. It is all on me. I personally think it's cheeseballish when I hear professional speakers out there basically having ghostwriters and other people and put their names on it and so forth. It's just lame. There's no authenticity. I don't even know how you even call yourself an expert when you do something like that. But that happens in far more cases than you could possibly imagine. And this is true for a majority of these posts that are on Instagram and Facebook and so many other places. But my job is threefold. I create content. I market content, which is what I'm literally been fully engaged with since the beginning of the year, even before that. And then I deliver content, which is what I'm doing now on this after-action review or when I'm with a client or on stage or whatever the case might be. But again, to create content, market content, and deliver content, I play to my strengths, and those are my strengths. Everything else in terms of the how to build a website, how to send out an autoresponder, how to build an autoresponder, how to do any of this other type of stuff, it's not my responsibility. I hire out the how. I contract out that. I have other people do those things. And if you take the time to look at it, where most of us get ourselves in trouble is we spend so much of our time doing low-level, low-productive activities. We're doing how-related work that, quite frankly, doesn't pay off in a very, very big way. So the sooner you can get away from that, the better off you're going to be. So coming back to the idea, you want to play from a position of strength. When you work within your core strengths, you exhibit superior skill, energy, never-ending improvement, and most importantly, you're going to experience a tremendous amount of enthusiasm and passion. Now, the people who I admire, you'll probably hear me say this over some AARs even down the road, but I love when I see, you see some of these guys from the cooking show or cooking channel and stuff, but when Emeril Lagasse had come out and he did his bang, when he kind of, put down a spice or something like this, demonstrated a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. Steve Irwin, his crocodile hunter who passed away a few years back, absolutely loved animals. He couldn't get away from them. It just was his passion. And you start to look at, I know even in college sports, you don't hear too much from Dick Vitale anymore just because but fundamentally, I absolutely love the way with which he approached the game and so on and so forth. And this goes true for across the board in any other spectrum. But it's the one key thing that's missing in so many places. But when you focus it on your strengths and what you love and what you do best, you're going to demonstrate a level of enthusiasm and passion and commitment to that is absolutely unseen. And that's the beautiful part about it. So you want to be able to do that. And if you're ever going to give a gift to the world, you have to sit back and think about it. Life is too darn short to start focusing in on how do you strengthen your weaknesses. Your gift is going to come out of your own experience and out of your ongoing, consistent demonstration of what you are born to do, what your core strengths are. So let me give you the acronym and break it down. The core, essentially, there's 4 foundational principles, so you could use this in whatever it is that's going on. But the C, you have a tremendous level of confidence, and you exude that. I do believe that people who know what they want to do, there's a certain sense of swagger. There's a certain sense of just they know exactly what needs to be done. They don't need to be told anything other than just, what the outcome is or whatever the case might be. But fundamentally, they have a tremendous amount of confidence in their skill sets and their ability to deliver the result that they were hired to do. Optimism. They believe well in advance that they are highly capable, regardless of what obstacle or challenge they're going to deal with, that they're going to bring back a successful outcome. They're relaxed. There's a position of flow. That's the R, if you will, in core. And then last is the enthusiastic part. They're enthusiastic about what they're doing. They're passionate about it, and that's the energy that propels them to do that. And by the way, we're going to be talking about, as you go through the 100-day challenge, about massive, force multiplier strategies. And there's simple things that you can do in order to separate yourself from other people. One of them is just to smile. Believe it or not, it's just so disarming and so inviting. It's absolutely amazing. Yet the vast majority of people, as much as they know all about it, and they've heard it in the song Annie, and never fully dressed without a smile, they walk around with a puss and a frown on their face. But it's just an easy thing to use to your advantage. But when you do that, you invite people in, and you open yourself up to a lot of opportunities that way as well. But it's a right way to go about doing it. All right. From there, next start is to start with an indomitable spirit. You start with an understanding that there is nothing and no one, no circumstances that's going to prevent you from achieving your goal. Now, I've been involved in martial arts my entire life, and so have my kids. And this is something that's been ingrained in me for the longest period of time. But the people that I work with, which is a lot of special forces, a lot of fighter pilots and so forth, because I do a lot of work in the military, I will tell you this much. You want these guys and gals to have an indomitable spirit. You want them to feel invincible, that nothing can take them down. Now, for some people, it'll turn them off because they think they're cocky, and I said that's where that level of swagger comes in. But I assure you, if you want somebody protecting you or your family or your country, you want them with a supreme level of confidence in their abilities and an indomitable will that nothing, no resistance force, no enemy, no difficulty, challenge, or obstacle is going to slow them down or prevent them from achieving their goal. So much of your success is mental, much more than it is physical. And you've got to wrap your mind around that whole idea. And this is something that's a learned trait. Over time, you just wind up building upon this. But more and more so, you do it by focusing on your core strengths. So these things are so interconnected is the way that it goes. All right. A person with an indomitable spirit knows what must be done. They assume responsibility for ensuring that it will be done, and they'll not be deterred, as I mentioned, by obstacles, roadblocks, or any type of excuse in any way, shape, or form. Now, for me, and I think just to stress this, it is based on a foundation of commitment, not rigidity. So let's talk about the difference between those two. You know, if you sit back and say to yourself, what is the common element amongst all people or highly successful people? And at the end of the day, I think it's really, really, really simple, and it's the reason why the integrity pledge is built into it. Again, simple but not easy. But highly successful people in any area, whether it's being a mother, a teacher, whether it's going to be a spouse, whether it is a pilot, or whatever the case might be, or even a vegetarian, believe it or not, they're going to have the highest level of commitment. That they have committed themselves to living a certain lifestyle, to certain values and virtues. They have committed to a cause, they've committed to a purpose, they've committed to a goal, they've committed to an outcome, they've committed to a person, they've committed to something. Yet for the vast majority of people, their commitment looks like a disposable razor. When it's difficult or challenging and gets a little dull or whatever the case might be, they walk away from it and they throw it away like it's no big deal. But so much of our life and our future and everything else comes down to the degree with which you are absolutely committed to seeing it through to the end. And that's so important. And again, it's a learned trait. So let me discuss the integrity pledge, which is built into the program. There's 3 steps you're going to have reinforced every day. If you make a commitment, you honor it. If you make a promise, you keep it. And if you set a goal, you achieve it. 3 simple things Now, the reason why they were built into the program, because I asked myself before I even designed it, what's the biggest challenge that people have? Everyone talks about goal setting, and I didn't even look at the 100-day challenge as a goal setting program. I look at it as a goal achievement program, as a rapid execution goal achievement program. And this is not anybody could set it. Most people, unfortunately, don't know how to achieve it. Now, if you sit back and you look at it, and I'll just give you probably the most extreme example. I can only speak to the U.S. because I know the numbers are fairly close. But over 50% of first marriages, all first marriages, end in divorce. And as you go into second and third, those numbers increase exponentially. Second marriage, higher rate. Third marriage, exponentially higher. Why is that? Because people basically, they have already made they've already committed the greatest sin you could make to another human being, which is, I will be with you till death do us part. You have made this commitment in front of family, friends, whoever else happens to be in the room, and so forth. But bottom line is, here's my question to everybody. If the single biggest commitment that you could make to another human being is broken by the vast majority of problems, don't you think we have an epidemic with commitment? Don't you think that people would find it easy to walk away from a diet because they got a binge, or they got depressed, or something came up, or goodness gracious, a bowl of ice cream happened, someone was eating it nearby and they couldn't control themselves, and they walked away from their commitment? Of course it does. It happens all the time. The single biggest problem, and no one wants to hear this, but it's the truth, is that people have very low levels of personal integrity. They start and they stop. They say they will, but they don't. They make commitments that they don't honor them. They make promises, don't achieve them, and they have set goals and New Year's resolutions again and again and again, and they don't do the things that are necessary, hold themselves accountable, enforce discipline, raise their standards, and do all the things. Because what got you to where you're at right now, which is whether it's fat and flabby or unhappy or whatever, that performance is not going to get you to the next level. You have to raise your standards. There's no way around it. So they're interrelated that way. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to have a very simple pledge, so that just meant the world to your commitments, to your integrity, your ability to get the job done. So first off, you can't say no one's ever said this to you if you're listening to this call. Point number two, and here's what I want to say. In order to prevent this whole idea of overcommitment, make fewer commitments. Just make the commitments that you're absolutely committed to honor. That needs to be your gut check. So you need to say to yourself, am I willing to pay the price, see it through, and do everything I can to honor this commitment? If the answer is, I don't know, or I'm uncertain, just say no. Just man up, girl up, get it done, say no. Next, if you make a promise to yourself or another human being, you've got to honor it. The single greatest damage that is done, the biggest unforced error, where you compromise your own personal strength, your own indomitable spirit, you throw your commitment out the window and everything else, is when you make promises to yourself or another human being and then don't honor them. So you want to change your life quickly? I'll make it real simple. Make promises and honor them. Make commitments and keep them. Set commitments, set daily goals, and put deadlines throughout the hour, every AM and PM, and meet them. By doing that, especially you start honoring the commitments and the promises and the goals that you set for yourself, your confidence will grow. That's just the way that goes. They go hand in hand. So I do believe that if you want to create change quickly in your life, make promises to yourself that you're going to keep. Make commitments you're going to honor. Put deadlines in place which you're going to meet. And by doing so, you will build momentum. You'll move the needle forward, and then you start progressively moving forward on these. And quite frankly, you can do this at a rapid pace. You do it on day one, and then you just move on, and each day, bigger promises, bigger commitments, bigger goals, bigger actions, whatever the case might be, and you develop just an ongoing reputation or habit with yourself where that's the way with which you operate and get things done. So we move on here. To continue to make progress, either flexibility or rigidity may be called upon at various times, but ultimately what we must not give up on are our commitments, our promises, or whatever it is we say that we're going to do. Now, you can practice and develop an indomitable spirit by drawing on the power of role models, personal strength, but most importantly, just take what I just said as it relates towards the integrity pledge. And by the way, there's an entire video that I put in place. It's up on top of the toolbar. Go back and reflect on it from time to time. And the old saying, which we probably all heard our lives, it's if we do not do what needs to be done, there's not a single person or institution that's going to help us. But if we will do what needs to be done, day in and day out, there's absolutely no one, no institution, no obstacle or anything that's going to stop you. So you want to get in the habit of doing that because then your own personal power becomes so strong. And again, your personal power is directly related to your personal promises that you make to yourself. If you have difficulty with those in the past, change it now. Just make small ones, honor them. Move throughout the day. Say to yourself as simple as, you know what, I am no longer going to eat after 7:30 at night. If part of your goals, one of it is to lose weight, maybe for 100 days, because one of the biggest problems people have with debt is they wind up eating out or buying food or lunch or whatever the case may be. Brown bag it for 100 days. You save yourself right there. Don't go to Starbucks. Think about all the different things that you can do in order to quickly, claim some of that money back. Develop better habits, make better choices, and so forth, but make those small promises that collectively, when you put them together, they build up to a much, much bigger outcome. From there, you want to start dealing with the truth. Grab a glass here. And here's what I'm getting at as it relates towards dealing with the truth. Make it real simple. All progress, all growth, all maturity begins with telling the truth. I cannot even begin to tell you how often I get hired by organizations to come and do strategic plans. And I sit down where they do a full detail analysis with the CEO and everybody else, and they give me the information that they want me to hear. Not always that I need to hear, but in order to make change, I need to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'm at the point now where I basically kind of go through up front, and I'm like, listen, I'm of no value to you if you don't deal with the truth. And you know what? It's just like every family has an embarrassing cousin or a stupid uncle or somebody that's a kind of an embarrassment to the family. There's information in every single business or every relationship that's good, that's bad, and ugly. It still has integrity even if it's ugly and if it's bad. All that means is you're dealing with the truth. But what totally amazes me is the last thing that anyone ever wants to deal with is the truth. And this happens again and again and again. And we see this from every organization, from politicians. You see it to business leaders sitting in front of Congress and being finally called upon to find out and say, hey, what's going on here? What is the truth? And there's so much lying and deception that goes on and so much BS that we create among ourselves that the best thing that you can do is just to live your life authentically and deal honestly with the truth, with the facts, with the figures and everything else. So let me speak to that. And this one may hurt a little bit, but here's the deal. When it comes to the truth, you've got to understand something. There is only one reality. Reality is a set of facts. We're not talking emotion. We're not talking about anything else. We're just talking the facts. So when we look at health, let's just look at it real honest, okay? You go in and you talk to your doctor, you're going to be dealing with facts. Your weight, your height, your BMI index, you're going to look at your blood pressure, you're going to look at your cholesterol count, you're going to look at your T cell, you're going to look at all of the numbers. And that's going to tell you these are the facts in terms of how you are living your life right now to this moment and so forth. For some reason, we can wrap our mind around that. But when it comes to so many different things, it's amazing in terms of how many games people play to themselves. All I want you to do is realize that there's a set of facts. There's so much money you made last year. There's a certain level of income that you generated, a certain level of profitability. So there's a weight. But if you break it down, right now you have a net income. You have a certain amount of net worth. You have X number of dollars in your pocket. You chronologically you are a specific number, and just the way that it goes. But what are the facts as it relates to your life in any circumstance that you deal with? And you always want to operate from a position of strength because or a position where you're dealing with the truth. If you do not, every single thing that you do is based on a lie. So that's just the way that it comes down to. So you are in a much better position just to be honest with yourself, even if it hurts. And my advice would be lay the pain out, flat out, right up front at the beginning of the year. Start dealing with the truth. Lay out all the facts and figures, the strengths and weaknesses, what's working, what's not, and deal with them openly and honestly, and then move on and make progress. But that's probably the best way to do it. But it is far easier, this is the funny thing about it, to deny reality than it is to accept it. And because people have a tendency of what is, and this is what Freud talked about, his pleasure principle, what is easy and what is convenient, they'll have a tendency of leaning in that direction. But success is information dependent. And I want to repeat that. Success is information dependent. And when we deny reality for whatever reason, when we devalue the truth or the integrity of our information, all this is going to do, it's going to ensure failure and performance breakdown down the road. Because then all you're dealing with are false perceptions, but you're not dealing with the honest truth. So it's important that you embrace that one. So here's the question for you. What are the undesirable realities in your life that must be addressed head on? Better yet, here, I'll repeat it and I'll give you another question. But what are the undesirable realities in your life or business that must be addressed head on? Here's another one. Here's a finger right in the bloody eye, both eyeballs, okay? What are you pretending not to know? What are you pretending not to know that doesn't exist in your relationship, in your classroom, in your marriage, in your bedroom, in your finances, in the way you live and manage your life and so forth? What are you pretending not to know? And think about that. And when you start to look at it and deal with it honestly, yes, it's going to be much more difficult at the beginning. There's going to be a little bit of a dip. But then you move forward because bottom line is you're not wasting your life. This is a one-and-done scenario. If you spend your life denying reality and putting off dealing with the truth and all this stuff, you're just living a bloody lie. And I want to address this. In order for you to make the type of progress that you want in 100 days, it's going to require that you deal openly and honestly and aggressively with the truth. So it's a smart way with which to go about doing it. From there, you want to start out with a bold first step. You don't want to start weak, but a fast, strong start requires a fearless, a daring, a courageous spirit. Also, it requires a little bit of nerves of steel, but most importantly, a massive dose of self-confidence. All of this comes as a result of planning. As you think through, and here's my promise to you. Everything in this program works. It's been tested and validated. I'm absolutely 100% certain I'd lay down in front of a bus because I know it works. And that is just so extremely important. I want you to have that level of confidence in the strategies. This is why I say trust the process, because the bloody thing works. But the deal is you can't get into the game. You can't start off your day weak, apprehensive, indecisive, uncertain, trying to do everything you can to prevent failure from occurring. What you have to do is you've got to play a strong offense. That's going to win the game, move the needle, and put you in a driver's seat. And ultimately, that's what you want. That's really what this whole thing is all about. So you want to start with a bold first step. And another good question, when is your finest hour going to come? Think about that. When is your finest hour going to come? Do you honestly think it's going to come from when you are acting meekly, when you are apprehensive, when you're slow, when you're uncertain, when you're indecisive, when you procrastinate? God, no. That's going to be your worst hour. Your finest hour is going to come when you basically move fast, when you act with boldness, when you just rightfully, and listen, don't ask for permission slip, just go out and take what you want. Go out and just move as if you've already achieved the outcome. That's so important for you to mentally absorb that outcome in advance. But that's the smart way to go about doing it. Now I want to get into the theme of the program. The theme is start fast, finish strong. And you want to start and end each day with a win. Very, very powerful. So here's an idea. It's all about owning your adjectives. So it's a little bit of a game, but here's the way that it goes. It doesn't matter who the person is or situation is. Heck, if you look at your computer, if it says Apple or if it says Mac or if it says Dell or it says this or whatever, it's irrelevant. But here's the thing. What you want to do is sit back and say to yourself is, what three adjectives would you use to describe that company, that product, that person, that thing, or whatever the case might be? So you put it down. You think about it. Well, you know what? And you start to go through, you start to realize that we have a tendency of using three adjectives of just about everything. Better, faster, cheaper, okay? Faster, higher, stronger. And it kind of goes on in terms of the way with which advertising and a lot of things work. We have a tendency of working in threes. What are the three adjectives that you want to be known for, famous for? And I guarantee you that speed better be one of them. And I'm not even talking about running around with your hair cut off. I'm just talking about choosing initiative over procrastination. That in itself will speed things up. Choosing, responsibility over making excuses. Choosing to honor a deadline rather than come up with some kind of an alibi as to why you couldn't make it and all that type of stuff. It's just doing everything you can in order to advance rather than engage in behaviors that slow things down or compromise performance. But you want to start the day fast. And when I come back to the idea of owning your adjectives, you already have a couple of adjectives the way that you start the day. And all I need to do, because another three words are built into the 100-day challenge, behavior never lies, I just need to look at your behavior for a day or two. And I can tell you exactly what your adjectives are. I can tell you if you start fast or slow. I can tell you if you start committed or apprehensive. I can tell you if you start bold or indecisive. I can tell all of that stuff by simply looking at your behavior. So you already have a way with which you're starting. What you want to do is you want to start your day quickly because you want to build momentum out of the gate as fast as possible. On the other side of the equation, same thing goes. You want to end strong. You want to finish strong. You want to finish with a sale, finish on a highlight, just the same way that a comedian, when he or she walks off the stage, they're going to leave their biggest laugh for last. That is intentionally designed. So think about the law of intentionality when it comes to an entertainer, because you are a performance artist. When a singer goes off stage or when a performance is done, it ends with an exclamation mark on a high point. You want to do the same thing. How do you, whatever performance you happen to be engaged in, whether it is even answering an email, whether it is, however you end with a call to action, whether it's a meeting that you're fulfilling, whatever the case might be, make it a point to start each day fast and finish everything that you do strong. So these are what I would call, even in a very real way, just deliberate acts of kindness, of proactive behavior that puts you in charge and puts you in the driver's seat, and that's what you're looking for. I mentioned before about the integrity pledge. This was the thing I had here about stop honoring every commitment, so I'm going to kind of walk past that because we already discussed it just before. And the idea in terms of building momentum early in the day, which is absolutely critical. So let me just focus on the last one here. Is you want to start rewarding and enjoying your success. So let's talk about rewards. In my book, rewards are symbols. So let's look at symbols. You could look at Statue of Liberty, symbol of freedom. You could start to look at, it's funny because in the U.S. we have a lot of symbols of freedom. You look at the eagle, symbol of freedom. You still look at the flag, symbol of freedom. Those are three dominant ones that stand out right there. Then you can start to look whether it's the White House or this house or whatever. It's astonishing in terms of how many different symbols, if you will, are out there. Now, let's go and look at a green jacket at the Masters. It's a symbol of golfing excellence. An Olympic medal or a championship ring, it's a symbol of professional or basketball. An Oscar is a symbol of acting excellence. You look at a Grammy of singing excellence is really what it comes down to. And we have a lot of symbols, if you will, that are important and they're meaningful. What you want to do is you want to celebrate the behavior you want repeated. So to tie this all together and back to the after-action review, here's my belief as it relates towards measurement and celebration. And this is why I started off with the idea of what the mission of the 100-Day Challenge is, to inspire, to promote, and celebrate excellence. But as you go through and you basically kind of engage in all the right behaviors to achieve a goal, which is going to require discipline and commitment and focus and follow-through and execution and all the goodies that come along with it, those same variables will work for anything. They're universal principles of success, and they work for everybody everywhere, and there really is no exception to those. You break down and look at the DNA of an Oscar, of a Grammy, of a green jacket at the Masters, of anything that you wind up basically seeing out there, that they all have the same DNA. They're just basically displayed, or should we say executed a little bit differently from a standpoint of skill set. So when we go through life, we have to sit back and say, how does this tie to the AAR? It's real simple. What gets measured gets improved. So let's start there. In order for you to improve your performance, you need to measure your performance. That's why the after-action review is important. Number two, what gets measured consistently improves consistently. This is why every 7 days in the 100-Day Challenge for 14 weeks, you're going to go through a regular disciplined after-action review process. It's a series of 5 questions you ask yourself, document it, and you take that feedback and put yourself in the driver's seat. From there, what gets measured consistently, and which is tied to compensation or some type of a celebratory reward, improves exponentially. This is so important. So what you want to do is sit back and say to yourself is, what do you want to become famous for? This is where the 3 adjectives come in. What is it that you want when this whole thing is done that you could look in the mirror and honestly say, okay, that I literally deserve a reward for demonstrating speed, focus, execution, you name it, whatever those words are. But what are the 3 primary behavioral traits that if you were to just focus in on those, that would change your life? And if you can, find a way with which even to tie a celebration. So let me give you a couple of examples. I like cost of living, or should I say quality of living rewards, quality of living celebrations. And I also like, so here's my 2 criteria. Number 1 is just that it should be something that improves the quality of your life, and this is the self-chosen reward. So I want you to think is at the very beginning of this new year, what you're going to give yourself 100 days from now from achieving the 3 goals or the 1 goal that you set for yourself. So you want it to be something that improves the quality of your life. That could be, I don't know, maybe it's cleaning services for you and your house or your wife or your kid, whatever the case may be, for the next year. Maybe it is you go out and you basically invest in a beautiful suit or dress or something along that way, because that'll be a symbol. It'll remind you, but every time you put it on, it'll reinforce the principles of excellence and use that as a point of celebration. But the other part of it is I also believe in the importance of making sure that if you give rewards that they appreciate and value. I don't like when I see companies give cars. I don't like when I see companies even give cash. I don't like when I see companies even give trips. There's going to be taxes associated with all of those things. I certainly get that. But it's not even paying the tax once. You're paying it because it immediately devalues. Gold is going to appreciate historically over time it will. Same with silver. And a lot of other things, whether it's diamonds or even a Rolex watch or something like that. I've got a few that have tripled in value over the years. Those things are important. So when you sit back and you think about your rewards, make sure that what you invest in, even if it's small, that it's something that's going to appreciate and value. That's important because that even gives you even a greater sense of feeling of significance, that you've done it the right way. So all of those are important. So let me just kind of go back and just do a quick review. Start this year with a script. Come out of the gate strong with a 30-day, day-by-day, deadline-by-deadline script. Start setting higher standards. It's all interconnected. You've got to expect and demand more from yourself. You want to basically make this the best year of your life? Operate with every single best practice you could possibly imagine. You want to start with a position of strength. As I said, you want to play to your strengths, that core, C-O-R-E. You want to start each day with an indomitable spirit. Build your confidence level up and approach everything from a position that nothing is going to stop you from achieving this outcome. Mentally prepare yourself in advance for all that. You want to start dealing with the truth. You want to begin with a strong, bold first step. You want to start each day with a win, and you want to end each day with a win. You want to start honoring every promise, every commitment, and you want to achieve every single goal that you set. So you start implementing and executing that integrity pledge, and you do it immediately. It is so bloody important. And it wouldn't be there if it was just an accidental throwaway. I don't waste my time on these things. So it's important that it's there. From there, you want to build fast. You want to basically start fast. You want to build momentum as early in the day as possible. This is why you want to get some quick wins right out of the gate. I'm not a big believer, and listen, Brian Tracy is a dear friend of mine, but he's got this book about eat the frog and about do the most difficult thing first thing in the morning. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's an absolutely just absurd way with which to be able to approach it. I think the smartest thing you can do is to build momentum quickly. I'm talking about cherry picking. Put a few pieces of low-hanging fruit. You get yourself some quick wins. Do something for your mind, for your body, for your soul. Do something for your family. Do something, and then look at your business as you come into the office. What are 3 or 4 or 5 things you could basically check off? Bang, 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 bang. Build that sense of momentum because that builds your confidence. Then if you have to take on or tackle something on, you're approaching it with a full head of steam. You don't approach it with a dead stop. So use that and think about that. It's a very smart way to go about doing it, but start fast and build momentum as quickly in the day as possible. So you want to get some wins, get a sale, close something, move something along, hit a deadline, whatever the case might be, but stack the deck in your favor in order to make that happen. Then you want to start rewarding and you want to start enjoying, but most importantly you want to start celebrating your success because you deserve it. All right. My challenge right now, I usually like to open up and take a couple of calls afterwards, but I've got a call waiting for me. I've got one to jump on. So I'm going to leave you with that right now. Each week we'll pick it up unless I'm traveling or on the road, but all of these are always going to be recorded and available for you, so you'll be able to go through and reflect back on them at any time. Anyway, I'm going to scoot right now, but we'll pick it up same time, same channel next week, and I want to give you an email. Anytime you have a question, anything you need, you can always go to the help desk, or you can send it to me directly at Gary@everythingcounts.com, and I will get back in touch. All right, guys, thanks so much. All the best to you, and make this your best year ever. See you soon.